The Santa Fe sun was relentless, baking the adobe walls of our stucco bungalow in a late June glare that made the air shimmer. I'd just gotten back from a 3-day environmental conference in Albuquerque, my head still swimming with climate models and bad coffee, when I found it, a Spotify playlist titled Desert Nights on the shared tablet we use for music in the kitchen. It wasn't mine, I'm a classic rock guy, Springsteen and Petty, and it sure as hell wasn't Lauren's. She was all about indie folk, Bon Iver, and Fleet Foxes, always teasing me for my dad rock. The playlist was a mix of sultry jazz and Latin guitar, songs like Besame Mucho and Chan Chan, with a creation date of last week and a single collaborator, someone named C. Vega. I'm not the guy who jumps to conclusions. At 35, I've learned most anomalies have explanations. I'm an environmental scientist. I track data, find patterns, fix ecosystems before they collapse. Lauren and I have been married 5 years. Our life in this artsy desert town, a vibrant blend of her pottery studio, my field research, and sunset hikes in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. But that playlist was a rogue variable, a signal that didn't belong. I set the tablet down, grabbed a mezcal from the cupboard, and stood on our patio, the sun searing the terracotta tiles, the distant hum of cicadas like static in my brain. Maybe it was a friend's, I told myself. Maybe a client. But Lauren hadn't mentioned any collaborators, and my scientist instinct, the one that spots invasive species, said something was off. Lauren was out when I got home, her text saying she was at a gallery opening downtown. She'd been busier lately, her evenings filled with client meetings or glaze experiments, her phone lighting up with notifications she'd brush off as spam. I didn't question either ceramics were taking off, her work in every boutique from Taos to Tucson. But now, that playlist was a fault in the data. I sat at our reclaimed wood table, the tablet screen still glowing, and checked the playlist details. It had been played 47 times, mostly late at night, when Lauren said she was working in her studio shed out back. Lauren came home around 10, her hands dusted with clay, her dark hair loose in a messy bun, a turquoise shawl draped over her shoulders. "Hey, you're back," she said, her smile warm as the desert sun, kicking off her sandals. She smelled like sage and glaze, her usual post-studio scent. Albuquerque was a drag, huh? Hot, nerdy. Missed you, I said, keeping it light, the tablet heavy in my lap. Found a new playlist on the tablet. Desert Nights. Yours? Her smile didn't fade, but her eyes darted to the tablet, quick as a lizard. "Oh, that," she said, laughing softly. Probably something a client shared. I was playing around with music for a gallery vibe. She shrugged, moving to the kitchen to pour a glass of iced hibiscus tea, but I caught the way her fingers tightened on the pitcher, a micro tremor in her calm. It was a good story. Lauren was a master at aesthetics, her pottery, her Instagram, her curated life. But a client sharing a Spotify playlist? That felt too personal. I smiled, let it go, and we ate dinner green chile enchiladas, her recipe while she talked about the opening, her voice bright but her gaze skimming past mine. The cicadas droned outside, the air thick with heat, and I couldn't shake the sense I was being spun. The next morning, I started analyzing. Lauren was at a farmer's market, selling her ceramics, so I had the house to myself. I checked the tablet, again, no other playlists, but Desert Nights had been updated last night with a new track, La Llorona. I logged into Spotify on my laptop, using our shared account. The collaborator, C. Vega, had a private profile, but their public playlists were all jazz and Latin, with names like Moonlit, Mesas, and Santa Fe Soul. One had a cover image, a dimly lit bar with a neon cactus sign. I recognized it El Farol, a local spot known for live music. I didn't want to believe it. Lauren was passionate. Not sneaky, she'd spend hours shaping clay, her hands steady, her eyes alive with focus. She'd leave me notes in my field journal, doodles of cacti with hearts, but that playlist was a weed in our ecosystem. I checked her phone later while she was in the shower, feeling like a jerk, but too deep to stop. Her texts, with Carlos Fifth, were buried in a thread labeled Gallery Contact, but they weren't about pottery. "Loved the music last night," he'd written. You make the desert hotter, she'd replied with a flame emoji. I set the phone down, the showers hum, a dull roar in my ears. I needed hard evidence, something she couldn't glaze over. On Friday, Lauren said she was meeting a buyer at El Farol for drinks. I didn't buy it. I borrowed a colleague's dusty pickup list obvious that my blue G-Pan followed her. Santa Fe streets glowed with adobe warmth, the air sharp with pinion smoke, the sky a bruised purple. She parked near El Farol, stepped out in a black dress that shimmered like obsidian, and went inside. I waited, parked a block away, the cicadas hum blending with my pulse. She didn't come out for 3 hours. When she did, a man was with hermit 30s, lean, in a linen shirt, with a guitarist's callous hands. They didn't touch, but their laughter was too easy, too close. I snapped a photo, zoomed in. Definitely the vibe of a musician. Maybe Carlos from his Spotify aesthetic. I drove home, the stars sharp overhead, my anger a slow burn in my chest. Back at the bungalow, I got scientific. I'm no hacker, but I know data. I installed a tracking app on her phone, hidden in a fake weather app she'd never noticed. It showed her at El Farol again the next Wednesday, then at a coffee shop near the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum the following night. I checked her bank app. 90 at El Farol, 150 at a boutique for art supplies she hadn't mentioned. New dress, maybe for him. I found a receipt in her studio tucked under a clay pot. 2 margaritas at El Farol, dated last Friday. Bartender's name, Marta. I went to the bar the next day, found Marta, and played the concerned husband. My wife was here, I said, showing Lauren's photo. She okay? Saw her with someone. Marta nodded, pouring a draft. The Potter? Yeah, she's in a lot with that musician, Carlos. Always dancing. I tipped her, 20 and left, my hands shaking. I started asking around. Our neighbor, Rosa, an herbalist who knew Lauren from art fairs, mentioned seeing her with a guy with a guitar case at a Plaza concert a month ago. Thought he was a friend, she said, grinding sage. I forced a smile, my jaw tight. Then I called Lauren's gallery friend, Sophia, under the pretense of planning a surprise. Sophia was chatty, oblivious. Lauren's on fire, she said. She's always with that musician, Carlos Vega, for inspiration. Total creative duo. I thanked her, my mezcal souring. The evidence was stacking up, but it wasn't just about proof. I was spiraling, caught between rage and grief. I kept seeing Lauren's hands shaping clay, now touching him. I wasn't sleeping. The desert heat pressing in, the cicadas' drone, a constant nag. Where had I gone wrong? Was I too analytical, too buried in data? Lauren lived for creation, for the raw pulse of art. Maybe Carlos was her fire, a spark I couldn't match. But that didn't excuse her. It just made me angrier. I got lucky one morning. Lauren left her sketchbook open, and inside was a doodle of a guitar with CV, scrawled beside it, dated last week. I snapped a photo, my coffee cold, the sun still blazing. This wasn't a phase. This was a design. The moral weight hit me like a collapsing ecosystem. I could confront her now, blow it all up, but what then? Divorce? Revenge? I didn't want to be the guy who raises his life, but I couldn't be the one who ignores it either. Lauren wasn't just cheating, she was sculpting a new narrative, one where I was the backdrop. I was done with that. I started planning not just to catch her, but to make her see me, the guy she thought she could outcreate. The playlist, the doodle, the text, they were my data set, and I was ready to analyze it. Santa Fe's late June heat hadn't let up, the sun scorching the adobe streets, the air thick with pinyon and dust. A week had passed since I found the Desert Nights playlist on our shared tablet. Its sultry jazz and Latin tracks, a clue that cracked open Lauren's carefully curated world. My investigation had built a damning dataset. Flirty texts with Carlos Vega, the musician, labeled gallery contact, GPS logs pinning her at El Farol, a doodle of a guitar with his initials, a margarita receipt, and Rosa's remark about her with a guy with a guitar case. Evidence wasn't justice. I needed Lauren to face the fracture, to see the husband she'd painted out of her masterpiece. I planned the confrontation like a field study, precise and undeniable. No shouting in our sunlit bungalow, no ambushing her over mezcal. I chose the Loretto Gallery, her artistic stronghold, where she was hosting a pottery showcase on Saturday night. She'd invited me to support her work, so I RSVP'd with a casual text saying I'd be there to cheer her on. "Can't wait to see you shine," I wrote, and she replied with a heart emoji, oblivious to the storm I was brewing. She thought she glazed over her lies. She was about to meet the scientist who charted her betrayal. That morning, I finalized my catalog, the playlist screenshot, the guitar doodle, printed text, GPS data, the El Farol receipt, and a photo of her laughing with Carlos outside the bar. I added a printout of his Spotify profile, the neon cactus from El Farol's playlist cover, circled in Read Overkill, maybe. But Lauren lived for visuals, and I wanted her to feel the weight of her own aesthetic. This wasn't just about exposing her, it was about reclaiming the narrative she'd sculpted without me. The day dragged, the desert sun relentless, the cicadas hum a constant pulse in my ears. I kept dissecting our marriage, searching for the invasive species. Was it when I got too buried in climate models, my evenings lost to spreadsheets, or when her pottery career skyrocketed, her studio becoming her sanctuary? Lauren thrived on creation her vases, her glazes, her need to shape chaos into beauty. Carlos, with his guitar and desert swagger, was probably her muse, a fire I couldn't ignite. That didn't justify her. It just made me wonder where I'd missed the shift. I dug deeper into Carlos, needing to know the man who disrupted my ecosystem. His Instagram was public. Live gigs at El Farol, desert sunsets, a guitar slung over his shoulder. One post showed him at the Loretto Gallery, captioned Art and Soul, Santa Fe style with Lauren's pottery in the background. Dated 3 weeks ago. She'd liked it, commented a flame emoji. My jaw tightened, but I kept going. His Bandcamp page listed him as a solo artist, no wife, no kids, just a string of EPs with titles like Canyon Echoes. A free spirit, not a villain, just a guy who saw an opening and strummed his way in. I called Lauren's gallery friend Sophia again, posing as the proud husband planning a toast. Sophia was looser this time, maybe because it was Saturday. "Lauren's unstoppable," she said. "She and Carlos are like this art music power couple, always at El Farol, dancing." I thanked her, my mezcal glass sweating in my hand. Power couple, another data point in the red. By afternoon, I was wired, pacing our patio, the terracotta tiles hot under my boots. The moral dilemma was a desert flash flood in my head. Confronting her would balance the equation, but what then? Divorce was the cleanest cut, but did I want to uproot 5 years over an affair? Or was this about pride, proving I wasn't the guy she could outshine? I could ruin her, send the text to her gallery partners, tank her reputation, but that felt like slashing a canvas, and I wasn't that reckless. Or was I? The sun glared, blurring everything, like the truth was melting in the heat. I arrived at the Loretto Gallery early, the adobe building glowing under string lights, the courtyard alive with sage and chatter. Inside, it was Santa Fe chic. White walls, turquoise accents, Lauren's pottery displayed on pedestals like sacred artifacts. The crowd was artsci collectors in linen, artists in denim, sipping rosé to a soft flamenco guitar track. I wore a tailored blazer, blending in but feeling like a researcher in a gallery, my catalog tucked in a leather satchel. I found a spot near a massive ceramic vase, its glaze shimmering like a desert mirage, and waited. Lauren swept in at 7:30, radiant in a silver dress that caught the light, her dark hair swept up, a glass of rosé in hand. She worked the room like a sculptor, all warmth and poise, shaking hands with buyers, her laugh a melody over the guitar. I watched her, my chest tight, remembering the woman who'd sketched cacti in my journal, her hands smudged with clay. Now she was a stranger, crafting a life I wasn't part of. Then I saw him, Carlos, in a black linen shirt, lingering by a sculpture, his eyes tracking her. Their glances met, a silent chord, and my blood surged. I waited, letting her think she was untouchable. She spotted me near the vase, waved, and glided over, her smile a perfect glaze. "You made it," she said, kissing my cheek, her sage scent sharp. This shows my heart. Glad you're here, Ethan. Wouldn't miss it, I said, my voice steady. Found something on the tablet. I slid the playlist screenshot from my satchel, held it low so only she could see. Her smile froze, her eyes flicking to Desert Nights, the collaborator's name C. Vegabold. What's this? She said, her voice tight, still playing the artist. Ethan, you kept that? It's just a client's playlist. You're overanalyzing. Am I? I set the doodle down, Carlos's initials clear. Then there's this. I opened the satchel, spreading the text, GPS logs, receipt, and his Spotify profile like a failed experiment. Her face didn't crack, but her hand trembled, the rosé sloshing in her glass. Ethan, this is absurd, she hissed, her eyes darting to the crowd to ensure no one noticed. You're hacking my life? That's low, even for you. Low? I leaned in, my voice low, sharp as a cactus spine. Low's line about buyers while you're dancing with Carlos Vega at El Faro. Every Friday, I've got your texts, your GPS. Even Marta, the bartender, knows you're always dancing. Want to call it inspiration again? Her jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought she'd storm off. But she stayed, her eyes blazing like a kiln. You're twisting this, she said. Carlos is a collaborator, a spark. You're too busy with your data to get my art. A spark? I laughed, cold and bitter. You're texting him flames, buying dresses, meeting him in secret. What is it, Lauren? His music? His desert vibe? Or just the thrill of erasing me? She flinched, but she didn't break. You don't get it, she said. You're so methodical. Carlos feels alive. He gets my soul. This, she gestured at the papers, is nothing. It's not what you think. Nothing? I tapped the doodle. You're in deep, and I've got the map. Keep sculpting, Lauren. It's almost a masterpiece. A collector hovered nearby, sensing the tension, but I waved them off with a tight smile. Lauren sipped her rosé, her eyes locked on mine, calculating. What do you want? She said finally. To ruin my show? My career? Go ahead, Ethan. You're not as perfect as you think. I want the truth, I said. No art, no spin. You owe me that. She leaned back, crossing her arms. Fine. Yes, I've been with him. It's not love, it's fire. You wouldn't understand. Fire. The word hit like a brush fire, but I didn't waver. I'd exposed her, forced her hand, but it didn't feel like a clean data set. It felt like a system collapsing. We stood there, the flamenco guitar swelling, the gallery's lights too bright like they were spotlighting our unraveling. I could have walked away, left her with the catalog and her collectors. But part of me needed more not an apology, but a why. Was it really fire, like she said, or was she chasing a heat I'd let cool? I thought about our early daysher, dragging me to desert raves, her laugh when I tripped on a cactus. Where had that Lauren gone? You could have told me, I said, quieter now. If you needed fire, you didn't have to burn us down. She looked away, her fingers tightening on her glass. You wouldn't have felt it, she said. You're always so measured. It stung because there was a grain of truth there. I'd been distracted, my life a grid of models and metrics, but that didn't justify her. Nothing did. I closed the satchel, left the playlist screenshot on the pedestal. Keep your fire, I said, but don't expect me to stoke it. I turned and walked out, the gallery's courtyard warm and still, the Santa Fe night sharp with stars. The city hummed, daring me to decide. Divorce was the simplest solution. But did I want to scrap 5 years entirely? I could torch her send the text to her gallery network, shatter her art world glow. Or I could walk away, recalibrate, build a life that didn't wilt in her flames. The doodle was still in my pocket, a small weight against the chaos ahead. I kept walking, the desert air clear, and felt the first hint of a new hypothesis, not closure, but possibility.